Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Mr. Payne bringing you Graphing Linear Functions, Unit 4, Lesson 4. I'm going to start off today by just reminding you that this is the slope-intercept form of a linear function. Your m stands for your slope, and your b stands for your y-intercept. This should not be new to you. I would like you now to take a time and hit pause on your video and go ahead and complete exercise number 1 on your own. It says 4 lines are graphed on the set of axes below. Write the number of a line beside each of the correct equation. You should be able to look at each one of these lines off to the right and identify which equation goes with them by just looking at the y-intercept. It's that easy. So make sure this is just practice of identifying lines by the y-intercept. Hit pause and go try that. Now on to exercise number 2. It says, please graph the equation y equals 3/2 x minus 3. So I'm going to go ahead and start off by doing a quick little review of how to graph this. My slope is 3/2. And my y-intercept is -3. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my y-intercept. When I say my b, sometimes I think to myself, begin. I'm going to begin at -3. So I'm going to go down to -3 and I'm going to put a dot. The slope is going to tell me how to move. I'm going to go up 3, right 2. Up 3, right 2. And that is the slope that I use. Up 3, right 2. You always want to go to the right, unless you run out of room and you have to go to the left. So now I'm going to go ahead and draw my line through my dots, all the way through my graph. The last step that you need to do in order to get full credit on a graphing, you have to have 3 or more dots, and you have to label your line. Y equals 3/2 x minus 3. I hope that is a good solid review for graphing. Now what I would like you to do is turn the page over and let's continue. Sometimes linear equations are not written in a form that makes it easy to determine the slope and y-intercept. So when we look at the problem on the back that starts off with 2y minus 6x equals 12, we're like, oh man, I can't just look at that equation and find my slope and y-intercept. So we have to do some stuff. So exercise 4 just gets us into the habit of identifying the properties that it's going to take to make this say y equals mx plus b. So the very first property that we're going to talk about, and let's look at step number 1. If I have minus 6x and I want to do the opposite of that, that's plus 6x. Can anybody recall what property that is? Is when I'm adding 6x? Well, if you said the additive property of equality, you would be correct. I'm going to write down additive. You guys know that it's additive property of equality. Now, in this next problem, I want you to take a look at what we did in step 1. You see how it said in step 1, 12 plus 6x? Now it says 6x plus 12. So when I change the order of something, I hope you recall that that is the commutative property. I hope you know that's the commutative property. Step number 3, I said, okay, I want to get y by itself right here. So I'm going to divide by 2. It's the same thing as saying multiplying by 1/2, but you're just dividing by 2. So if I'm either multiplying or dividing something, I hope you remember that that is the multiplicative property of equality. Now in step 4, all I did was I took that 2 and I divided each side by it. I hope that you remember that this is demonstrating the distributive property. All I did was I took that top problem and I split it in half. And your answer that you should come up with is y equals 3x plus 6. Now, with this equation, I can identify my m and my b. My m equals, I hope you're going to tell me 3, and my b equals, I hope you're going to tell me 6. I would like to go ahead and do A and C with you. I want you to put it into slope-intercept form and identify the slope and y-intercept. So let's go ahead and do A first. I want to get 3y. My goal is to get y by itself. Okay? So how am I going to move that 3x? I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to do plus 3x. If I do it on one side, I have to do it to the other. Now let's remember some basics here. I cannot combine that 15 and that 3x. So let's just rewrite it. And I always rewrite it right off the get-go in the correct form. So now I want to get y by itself still. It says 3 times y, so I'm going to divide by 3. Y equals 3 divided by 3 is just 1x plus 5. Therefore, my m is this invisible 1 here. So my m is 1 and my b is 5. If you have any questions, go ahead and write them down right on the side of this paper so that you can ask me the next day. Let's go ahead to C now. I'm still solving for y. I want to move x first. How do I move a positive x to the other side? Well, I'm going to have a negative x. Remembering the basics again, I cannot do 6 minus x because they're unlike terms. So I'm just going to write it down. Negative x plus 6. I'm going to divide now by a negative 3. Cancels out. Y equals, now let's remember, a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and it's going to be a positive 1/3. X minus 2. 6 divided by a negative 3 gives me a negative 2. Therefore, my slope is 1/3, and my y-intercept, where I'm going to begin, is at negative 2. I would like you to take the time right now, and I want you to try B and D on your own. I will let you know that your m's are both fractions. I would like you to keep them in a fraction. As you can see, that in my case in C, my slope is 1/3. I don't want to turn that into a decimal because if you turn it into a decimal, it's not going to tell you how to move when you go to graph this. So keep it as a fraction always. Thank you and have a great night. Hope your understanding for linear functions is a little better after today's lesson.